Joining us now, it's Friday at 3 o'clock, is the one and only sassy Eliot Shorr-Parks, brought to you by Robin Ford, online at robinford.com. There's no stopping the Robin. Hey, Eliot.
You know, I'm trying to imagine Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard driving through the city. Like, let's put on local radio and hear one of the new beat writers, and then that song comes on. They're like, what have we got? What have we gotten ourselves into?
Well, they'll know at least one of the beat writers is very sassy.
Yeah, so it's a good thing for them to know. Yeah,
and that is you.
Don't talk about Brandon Lee Gowton like that.
So, well, he's sassy too. Now that you've had 20 hours to stew on it, where are you at with the Sean Mannion hire?
Yeah, so I would say him combined with Josh Grizzard, Grizzard, they were my two least favorite candidates out of all this, right?
Nice.
So going into this, I mean, I have to be honest. Like, prior to the hire, if you would have told me these were the two they end up with, they were my least two favorite hires. Now, I think we kind of have to view this a little bit, these coaching hires, as draft picks in a way. Like, we can look at their resume and say what we like. We can, look at what they've done. But ultimately, we do not know in the job they were in, like what they were ultimately responsible, what they really had, like the dynamics of the job. But on paper, I think they're uninspiring hires. Like, Josh Grizzard is basically Tampa Bay Patullo. Like, that's basically what he is. So everyone that wanted Patullo gone, you just got the version from Tampa Bay. And Sean Mannion, I think, can have a bright upside and everything, but I can't get behind an offensive coordinator that has no experience in the job whatsoever. I mean, the two guys they hired have a total of 1 year calling plays. So I think that there's a chance in a year, like, we look at this like a draft pick and go, okay, like, this is better than I thought. But all we can go off of what we know, and these were two of my least favorites.
Do you think it's concerning at all that they had to hire their, according to me, at best fourth choice and maybe fifth choice that they wanted to hire, that the Eagles couldn't land one of their top choices?
I don't, honestly. Like, if there was someone out there where I said they really need to get this guy, like this guy is a way better option than what they got, then I would say yes. But I was never really into Brian Daboll, and the other candidates were all kind of the same to me. So I think we could get back into the discussion of what does this, like, is the job appealing? And I think, we've kind of gotten our answer there. But in terms of them losing out on anybody, no. And I also think one of the outcomes of these hires is Nick Sirianni has more power than he's ever had. And as we know from, talking about the team throughout the season, I'm a believer in his offense with Jalen Hurts. So I think that he has more power than ever. I think he'll still have final say. And so, no, I don't think it's a huge deal.
It's interesting that you say that, E. So one of the things I've been thinking about is what type of offense is Sean Mannion coming with? Like, he doesn't have his own offense. Yes, he's played and studied under this scheme that we believe is a Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, that whole coaching tree type of an offense. Is he bringing that offense with him, or is he trying to incorporate Nick's offense with some of those things and trying to fit that around Jalen? Because if you think about some of those things that those offenses require their quarterback to do, those are things that Jalen Hurts hasn't been successful at doing when they've tried to do it throughout his career. So I'm just wondering, like, the type of offense they're going to try to incorporate with Jalen at the quarterback position.
Yeah, so I think of those two you said, it's the latter. Like, I don't think Sean Mannion is coming in and saying, here's going to be the offense, everyone's going to learn it in training camp, here's all this new verbiage, and this is, like, what we're going to do. I think he's going to come in, and he's going to work with Nick, and he's going to come up with, with the other coaches, and they'll put new wrinkles in the offense, and they will do maybe some things that he brings. But I don't think a 33-year-old with no offensive coordinator experience is coming in and dictating what this offense is going to do. I think he can be a fresh mind. Like last year when we were talking about the Patullo hire, I said thought they should hire someone that could bring 15% new ideas. Just, new, like a different background, has never been in here, can give fresh eyes, and I think that's what he can do. But I think to say, he's going to bring this type of offense, or, the Eagles are going to do this way more because he's here, I don't think that's the case. We could see natural evolution in the offense if the offensive line is better. If Jalen spends all offseason working on the things he needs to work on, I think you would have seen a different offense last year, even if Patullo was here. But no, I don't expect this to be the Sean Mannion offense. It'll be the Nick Sirianni offense built for Jalen Hurts. featuring Sean Mannion.
Wow.
So I'm not letting you get away with what you said 2 minutes ago without explaining it. Please present your case about how this makes Nick Sirianni more powerful than ever.
Because had we been having this discussion and we're talking about Brian Daboll or we were talking about Mike McDaniel, then I think that Nick could have really been on the hot seat in a different way. And I think there was a real world where if those two would have made the offense better, they were doing their own thing, that Nick could be in some trouble, right? And Nick might have actually had to defer to them, and they might have had some version of full autonomy. If you told me prior to this that the two guys they were going to hire had the main guy was 33 and had basically no experience coaching, right? 2 years and only 1 year in a real job. And the other guy was basically the Tampa Bay version of Patullo. I don't see how there's any way you would see this as a bad thing for Nick. Now, if you want to tell me he's only in this position because they missed out on Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll, yeah, maybe. But
and Charlie Weiss and Declan Doyle.
That's fair, but the situation is the situation that he is in, and he is surrounded by coaches that he will have more authority than, right? So I think he has more power on this offense than he ever has. I think everything they're going to do is going to be run through Nick. I don't think Sean Mannion will be able to trump Nick on mostly anything. I think they'll talk about things, and Nick will listen, but I think if it was Brian Daboll or Mike McDaniel, they might have had the authority to say, no, like, I appreciate your feedback, Nick, but we're doing this. I think these guys are, like, Nick is going to bring them along. And I think that's a very different situation than we would have thought Nick would have been in coming into this.
Yeah, I don't agree. And here's why. I think who they wanted to hire tells you all they think about what they envision for Nick's power moving forward. This isn't the hire they wanted to make. Let's be clear about that. And if they didn't think Nick was the answer on the offense, they're not going to, just because they can't hire the guys they want, all of a sudden say, well, you know what, I guess he is. I think there is truly no difference to where if the offense is humming and you thought Nick would have been in trouble with Brian Daboll and Mike McDaniel, I think there is no difference with Sean Mannion. I don't think they would have, if they would consider moving on from Nick for one of those coordinators to be the head coach, I don't think there's any difference here. So maybe it's a stay of execution, but the way that you framed it as sort of like this makes him more powerful, I think that is the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah, so I disagree with that. I think Sean Mannion could potentially be a head coach candidate. Now, I will say, outside of this discussion, that's a long way down the road, in my opinion. I think sometimes when people are young, we ultimately go, well, they have upside. I mean, we have no idea. We just know he's young, right? So I think he gets labeled with this potential head coach thing. We'll see how he can do. But I don't think Nick will have the same type of pressure breathing down his neck like he would have with some of the higher profile candidates. So I get your point that, like, ultimately whatever they wanted to do, like, didn't end up happening. But as someone, as you bring up, like, used to hire people, you can talk about all these situations you might have been through or might have happened, but they're in the situation they're in. And Nick is clearly the most powerful, like, and accomplished offensive mind on the staff right now.
So how would you advise fans to feel about this? Because the idea of Sean Mannion coming in, the sense I'm getting from a reaction from the fan base is that they're excited about new ideas, about the Sean McVay tree sort of being incorporated to what they felt was a stale offense. Now, I know you and I have always sort of been on the same page, and I think Spike as well, when saying that the offensive scheme wasn't the real issue last year. It was more or less trying to fit something around Jalen that makes him comfortable, which I don't necessarily view to be entirely bad, because you should be trying to fit your scheme around your quarterback. But I'm just wondering, if I'm a fan and I'm listening to you, right, E, I got mixed feelings here. You're sitting here telling me that Nick is basically running the show and not a whole lot is going to change. This is going to be a Nick Sirianni offense with a few wrinkles. Is that something we should be feeling positive about? Because I think most fans felt like Sean Mannion is coming in and it's going to be his show.
Yeah, so if I were fans, I would be more excited about Nick Sirianni running this than Sean Mannion. Like, Sean Mannion might have good ideas, but he is not qualified right now to run an entire side of the football. Like, he's only been coaching for 2 years. So I think Nick Sirianni, people might not love his approach to offense and all those things. I think ultimately he does what the players can do. I think if you told me they just brought back Patullo and had a better offensive line, I think they probably go deeper into playoffs. So I'm just not in the camp that this team needs to overhaul as other fans are. But what I would say to fans is, if you believe in Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, then I think you should be excited about this because I think they are as powerful as they've ever been. If you don't believe in Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, then yeah, I don't think you're going to see like massive changes because I don't think they brought in candidates that have the power to put in massive changes. They'll be listened to, and I think they'll add new wrinkles. But, I mean, do we really think Sean Mannion has tons of ideas that Nick has never heard of?
Yes.
Like I don't think that. I mean, do you think he's?
I don't know if I believe that.
You think like he's going to come in and explain a crossing route to him?
No. But it's more than, again, we're all on the same page that as far as scheme goes,
right.
Everybody knows all the things, and I have no doubt. But there are clearly people who think about offense in an advanced way and are more talented at those sorts of things. And my gut tells me that Sean Mannion came in and impressed them with his wealth of knowledge in how to do those sorts of things. So I don't. You can get into the minutia of what routes they run and those sorts of things, but I think it's bigger than that. It's a bigger question than that. It's why some head coaches that run a certain scheme are more successful than others because they have a better understanding of why they're doing what they're doing. Now, yeah. I think Nick has been limited by Jalen. I think Kevin Patullo was limited by Jalen. I think everybody's limited by whatever personnel they have. But my gut tells me if you put Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie on a lie detector test and said, did Sean Mannion bring ideas and concepts and ways to think about the offense that is advanced, that impressed you? My answer I think they would all probably say yes.
Yeah, so I agree with you on that. Like, I do think that in the meeting room he was very impressive. I guess where I'm going with it is I'm sure Kellen Moore had all types of new ideas. And I'm sure when they talked to Patullo, he was like, oh, here's something I think we could do that we haven't done before. And Brian Johnson. But I think ultimately, to kind of maybe piggyback off Mike's question, if fans should be excited, it's just going to come down to whether or not the players can do it. And so you're right. I think he could come in and say, you've done it this way, but I think if you tweak it, it might be easier for Jalen. Like, I think there's that possibility, right? I also think, while his lack of experience matters, players do respect players that have been in the NFL. Maybe he'll be able to get through to Jalen in a way other coordinators haven't, right? Like, that's possible. But I just think at the end of the day, they're going to have a lot of the same personnel. Now, there will be some turnover at receiver. We'll see what happens on the offensive line. But I think expecting a 2-year coordinator that has just been around coaches to come in and make a massive change, I think the only way you ever get a massive change to what they look like is if you change Nick or Jalen.
Okay. All right, Eliot. Well, is that it? There's
I was going to say, do you want to fight about something? I mean, there's
No. It's a good conversation. We don't have to fight about it.
I enjoyed it, yeah.
There's been stuff floating around on the internet about Vic Fangio not being here next year. Like, at any point. Now, the way that I would look at it would be they are way behind. If he's not going to be here and they don't have a plan for who's going to be defensive coordinator, they're 3 weeks late on doing that. Is there anything you've heard about, Fangio not being here, or is this just sort of internet rumors gone wild?
So I have not heard anything one way or the other, right? I do think if there was like a lot of real scheme and this was becoming a huge story, and I think you guys even talking about it, right, matters, biggest show in the city. And I think Vic could let it be known what his future is going to be, right? But I guess the way I would say that question is, let's just live in a world where he does retire, right? It's a huge loss, and also not just on the football field, but it would also really highlight the issue with hiring people with a lack of experience on the offensive side of the ball. And I would even go as far as to say you have to wonder if they feel confident Fangio is coming back, and because they're hiring such inexperience on one side of the ball. If you were to lose Vic, and then Nick is spread, again, I'm not thinking he's going to design the defensive plays, but if Nick has to oversee a defensive coordinator in a way he has not with Vic, then the lack of experience really matters on offense, because I think he is going to have to hold Mannion's hand to an extent, just like any candidate that's young and that's new to the job would need some oversight. So if they were to lose Vic, obviously it's a massive loss. Like, I don't need to explain why that would be. But I also think it would have an impact on Nick in a major way, because he would then, as we saw with Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, be stretched pretty thin in terms of monitoring both sides of the ball.
All right, Eliot, the Go Birds podcast, Go Birds Daily. You have to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Eliot, you have a good weekend, buddy.
All right, you too. Talk to you guys soon.
All right, there he is, Eliot Shorr-Parks.